Joining us now, we have a true legend, filmmaker Oliver Stone. Of course, he is behind many, many movies that you know and love. Platoon, Born on the 4th of July, Natural Born Killers, Snowden, JFK, and now has just released JFK Revisited, a documentary through the looking glass. Great to have you, sir.
Good to see you, sir.
Thank you, Krystal and Saagar.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
So let's start with the obvious question. Why now? Why take a look back now? Are there new details? What made you decide to release this new documentary?
Well, actually, no, it's like a long-term thing. This movie was made, JFK was made 30 years ago, practically 28 years ago. And no, I'm sorry, 1991 is 30 years, yeah. And there's been, as a result of the movie, the Assassination Records Review Board was created by an act of Congress, which is a pretty serious thing for a movie. I think it's maybe unique. They existed for 4 years. There were 5, 6 academics, but they had a good staff of technical people who knew what they were doing. And they questioned a lot of people again, brought them back, and questioned some new witnesses too. So as a result, they issued this report. Their term ended in '98. Their term ended, but Congress would not renew it. And all that information is details, Sherlock Holmes kind of stuff, looking at magnifying glass, and looking at all the details and picking up little things. They all add up. But nothing was done with it with the American media, of course. It was reported badly. It was ignored, and it was disappeared. So in 2013, if you remember, there was a 50th anniversary of JFK's death. And was it 50th? 50th, yeah, 50th, yeah. And I'm sorry, I sometimes get my years wrong. And if you looked at it, all the TV stations, they didn't have as much cable as much as podcasts as they have then. And there was no mention of an alternative thinking about the Kennedy killing. It was pure celebration of the Warren Commission. Oswald did it alone, lone assassin, all that nonsense on every channel. It pissed me off. And it seemed like we lost that battle in the American consciousness. However, it's coming. There's no time limit on this. The point is that I was busy with other things. I was doing Snowden. I was doing documentaries. But my associate here, Rob Wilson, my producer, insisted that we go back and do this, leave a legacy, a record about this from another point of view, which is what we've done. JFK Revisited states the case again, doesn't cover everything. This is the 2-hour version. There is a 4-hour version available, which will come out in January or February. But it's serious stuff. We went to, and it's all factual, documented, checked. And that's what I want people to have as an alternative to go to in case you hear the usual bullshit from the government about the Warren Commission. So you know what's going to happen in 63, in 23, there'll be the 23 will be the 60th anniversary of his it'll be 70th. In 23, what would it be? Nobody can count around here. Okay, it'd be the 60th anniversary of his death, of his murder. And on that occasion, I'm sure networks will do the same thing. Everything from National Geographic to ABC, NBC, you'll hear the same bullshit over and over again because they have to reinforce it in the American memory. This is a very important case. This is perhaps the most important case of American government that we've seen in the last 100 years. I can't think of anything more important than his killing. Why? We want me to go into that? Why? Because since Kennedy was killed, no American president, not one, think about it, has been able to touch the military complex or the intelligence agency complex. Budgets have gone up, up, up. It's purposeless. Nobody says stop. Nobody says, what about peace? Nobody talks about an alternative way of doing business in this country, a strategy for peace. No, it's all about a strategy for tension. For preparing for war is very important for America. Much more money is spent preparing for war. War is not a good thing. They all know that, but we're coming awfully close to lighting the fuse when we keep pushing in Ukraine, we keep pushing in Taiwan, we keep pushing pretty much everywhere on the map where we create tension. And that's something that Kennedy was totally against. He was a warrior for peace, made many speeches. In his last year of his life, gave the peace speech at American University. And in September 63, he signed the nuclear test ban treaty with the Soviet Union, which was amazing. It was the first treaty between these two countries, really, since World War II. That was an amazing treaty. And no credit has really been given to that because people don't think about it. But him and Khrushchev, the premier of Russia, and him really were on the path of détente. A lot more could have happened. There was a space race agreement to cooperate. It was starting to happen, the détente. And the forces in our government, the hardliners, let's say, who don't want peace, who don't want to have any kind of arrangement with the Soviet Union, succeeded in their plan to get rid
Oliver,
of Kennedy.
Let me ask you this, which is at what point did you realize that there was more to the official story? Why was it so important in your personal life? And then since then, why have you continued to try and update the American public, create the compelling movie? I'll confess, I didn't watch JFK until I was like in my teenage years, and I remember watching this, being like, oh my God, I'm like, this is crazy. Like everything we learned, it caused a whole rabbit hole for me personally on YouTube and more. And now, of course, your work and this new documentary has been integral in exploring that. Can you talk to us in the audience about why you think it's still important, both personally to you, but and expand more on the legacy of the cover-up itself?
Well, if you can't look at the past, if you can't see your own history, you're going to be very confused by everything that's happening in the present. That's what we have now, massive confusion. We have a media that we don't trust and a government that many people don't trust. So it's all a confusing morass of situations that justify going on with this budget. Nothing changes. We stay in the status quo. The budget on the Pentagon goes up, up, up. It's what, 800 billion now, and it's probably going to it's beyond $1 trillion with all the intelligence agencies and all the extra costs thrown in. And above all, when you have, we have to realize our presidents are scared. They don't want to touch it. This is the new third rail. You cannot touch defense of America because they scream national security. They scream, listen, unless we're out there challenging China, challenging Russia, challenging Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, these are our enemies. That's what they keep saying, and they keep inflating the threat. It's called threat inflation. It's been going on since I was born, since 1940. Actually, it started really heavily in with the Korean War. It started in 1949-50.
Without sort of spoiling the documentary for people, because we want them to go and see it, and I'm also very interested in watching the 4-hour version when that comes out as well. Give us a few details that you found that were new, that raise additional questions about the official narrative of how and why Kennedy was killed. Well,
the Record Review Board basically interviewed many people. They went through for example, what was the Warren Commission? How was it put together? We found out a lot from those hearings, and it was a crooked deal from the beginning because John Foster Dulles, who was the CIA chief who had been fired by Kennedy, Allen Dulles. That's his brother's John Foster Dulles, was the Secretary of State. Allen Dulles was put on the board, basically went to all the meetings, and was not the head of the board. Warren was, Justice Warren. But Dulles basically had controlled everything the CIA presented to them and cut off all the serious questions that could be given to them, which was, among them would be, what was the CIA doing in Cuba? And trying to assassinate Castro? And what was the Bay of Pigs about, which is a key event in Kennedy's life? What was the missile crisis about? Dulles made sure that the commissioners didn't hear from the CIA, basically. They got bullshit information from them. When it came to, same thing was true about FBI. Anything that was sensitive was derailed by Dulles. So it's like putting the fox in charge of the chicken coop, as I said back when. Aside from that, the board went back into the details, the evidence, and none of the primary evidence that was used on that day holds up. None, not one thing. The rifle, the bullets, the fingerprints, everything that they blamed on Oswald, not one thing would be held up in court because there was no chain of custody. on their information. You'd think they'd take care in a case like this to be ultra careful, to log everything, and which they tried to do, but so many mistakes occurred that it's clear that there was something at work to derail an honest investigation. And we found this out, and we go into the details of all that proof. You should see it to believe it. And on
One
top
of
of
the
that,
thing, one of the things that, I don't know if this was new or not, but it was something that was new to me, was the fact that there were other plots on Kennedy's life and attempts on Kennedy's life in that same year that had been uncovered and yet were kept secret from the public and were kept secret from the Secret Service agents who were, tasked with protecting Kennedy. Talk to us a little bit about that piece too, because that to me was really eye-opening.
Well, we go into the more details about the Chicago attempt in November of '63 before, and also the Tampa, Florida attempt. In Chicago, a landlady spotted 4 Cubans with rifles in an apartment, and she brought it to the attention of the FBI or the police, I don't remember, and they arrested 2 of the Cubans, and they also arrested the man who was going to be the next Harvey Oswald. He was Thomas Vallee, and he had also, like Oswald, had a job in a high office building where the car would have to slow down to make the turn, et cetera. He had been a Marine in a program in Japan, another base in Japan. He had defected to the Soviet Union, so it seems, as did other people, so it seemed like it was a program run by the CIA in the 50s to learn about Russia, sending defectors there. And that's what Oswald was. Came back to the United States, as you know, without difficulty, and was set up to take the rap in Chicago. But Kennedy canceled the trip. He was warned by we don't know exactly by who, but he was warned, and he did not go. In Tampa, it was the same thing, except he wasn't a Marine. He was a Cuban involved with the Cuban groups against Castro in Tampa and in Florida. There was a big station in Miami. There were a lot of Cubans involved. Kennedy had crossed the line with that, by not going into the Bay of Pigs. He refused to invade Cuba. He refused, and that cost him. In 1962, when the missile crisis came, the generals were very clear: bomb the shit out of them. We're going in there. LeMay wanted to go in. This was an excuse to go in for them because the Russians had put missiles in Cuba. Kennedy again refused to go to war. He came very close. We owe perhaps our lives to his judiciousness in this case, because it was very close, and it was really Robert and Jack and the Soviet ambassador and Khrushchev who solved this issue at the last second. It was very scary, but it was clear that if Kennedy, the bigger point is that if Kennedy is not going to go invade Cuba, why the hell is he going to go send troops to Vietnam? That was the whole point. You have to think of Cuba, you have to think of Vietnam, and you have to think of Berlin and Moscow. These are the 3 points of a compass, and you can put pressure in any one of those, but Vietnam was ridiculous. And Kennedy said, if I'm not going to send troops into Cuba 90 miles away, why am I going to send troops 6,000 miles away? Remember, he only had advisors in Vietnam.
Yes.
And this is a big historical point that gets confused, because historians who are very conservative, tend to be conservative, are always trying to tell you that Lyndon Johnson Johnson continued the policies of Kennedy. That's horseshit. He didn't. He changed everything except the civil rights position on Kennedy. In Vietnam, he went right to war. It took only a year, and he sent troops to Vietnam, combat troops, and that was over. I was one of those combat troops, so that's why I have a particular interest in it. But I didn't know anything at the time. That's what you asked me a question of, how did I get into it? Not at all. I was a typical conventional conservative student. Because my father was Republican and very, very intelligent man, and I bought all that stuff, that the Russians were out to get us. And that was very much the mood of the early 50s. Many of my dad's friends were liberals, and because he entertained different points of view, but they were all scared in a way. They were scared of speaking up. There was this whole feeling that if you spoke too much, you were a Russian. You're a sympathizer. Same thing is true now, by the way. That's what you should recognize. The same thing is true with all this Russiagate shit. It starts again, and they keep feeding us this Russia, 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 and now it's China. You have to understand the nature of threat inflation. This is what our government is great at, and the media helps them. They're great at it. They've been doing it for many years. The CIA put assets in the media back in the 50s. And a lot of them are around this Kennedy case because they make sure that nobody gets very far with an investigation on it. They ridicule them.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.